Now I'm going to give you a little tip on handling your floats. With most Fair Isle knitting, the motifs are set out so that you're changing your colors every 4 or 5 stitches. You get to change your colors, so you don't have to worry about tacking down that floating contrast color behind your knitting. But with doing these collegiate motifs, sometimes there's 15, 20 stitches that you have to knit in one color and float your back color all that way. You don't want to have those floats pulling your knitting, but you also don't want them too loose. Now the tips I have, or the things I have found when I'm doing my my 2-color knitting in these long floats, is to make sure that your front stitches, the stitches you're working, are very firm, and then so you get a nice knitted material here that has a lot of body to it and a lot of cushion to the stitches. So right here we're doing this pink row, and there are 13 stitches across here. I'm going to tack this down 2 different places. Now the row before, I had a nice long run also, and it was actually 1 stitch more. You can see that I had to do 14 there. So as we get going, I'm going to do 5 stitches. There is where I had twisted or tacked down my float on the last round. So let's get to, we've got 4, let's go 5. And I can see when I spread my knitting apart that I have not tacked down in this area before. It's very important that you do not stack when you tack down your floats in the back of your knitting. If you tacked in this area on the last round or on the last row, don't tack there this time. But look, it seems very clear. It seems open. So I'm going to take my contrast color, lay it over take my main color and lay it over my contrast color that I'm working with, and give that contrast color a stitch. Now this blue is just lightly tacked down on the back, and we'll keep going, and we'll probably tack down 1 more time. There's a good spot that hasn't been tacked down before, so we're just going to lay the blue over the orange and go to the end of our run. And now we need to do a blue stitch. So I will do my blue stitch, but before I go any farther, I'm going to give my knitting a nice little stretch. These stitches are all really nice and firm to get our gauge, and then I'm going to take and watch that blue yarn. I'm going to take my knitting, I'm going to give it a good stretch, and that blue pulled to loosen up our floats in the back. So my floats, I never have to worry about my floats being too tight, because I give that a little bit of tug on those really long places where I have to float a long ways. And there is a tack down from the last row, and I make sure I never stack those on top of each other. So when the hat is pulled, you're not going to get a row of tack downs in the same area.